Obviously, so prior to me in Bellator, Hector and Eddie were the ones that left, right? Hector was
Hector Lombard and
Eddie Alvarez
were now in the UFC, both of them.
Both the middleweight champ and then the lightweight champ, and they both got taken care of pretty well. But if you remember Eddie's situation, I don't know if you remember this, he got an offer from the UFC, still under the matching period with Bellator. Bellator says we matched it, right? And in terms of what was in the contract, it was matched, right? But because Bellator has no pay-per-view venue, well, if UFC says we'll pay you on pay-per-view, and Bellator says, well, we will too. But that's not real life, right?
Right.
That's fictitious.
They've done 2 pay-per-view shows ever.
And they've never met any type of threshold. So, they say it matches, but it doesn't. So I don't know if you remember, but they went to court over it. And the UFC won. Eddie got the right to. I'm sorry, he didn't win. He somehow did like a one more fight in Bellator and then went to the UFC. I don't know exactly what the finality of that case was. But anyways, when that happened, his contract became public knowledge. Right? And so a lot of UFC fighters were pissed because they gave him a whole bunch of money. And so when I was 12-0, I had my last fight in Bellator against Andrei Kreshkov, July 30th, maybe 31st of 2013, beat him up pretty good. And then I had a 12-month matching period. And so what was expressed to me by the UFC brass was that you need to get rid of your matching clause and we will make you an offer. But we will not make you an offer until that happens.
Get rid of your matching clause.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, here's how I went about doing it. Because it's 12 months, right? That's freaking, I'm not going to sit out for 12 months.
Right.
So I'd call Bjorn every 2 days and say, hey, Bjorn, I'm not going to resign. Please let me.
Bjorn is the guy who was running Bellator at
Correct,
the time.
yeah. And now he got fired.
Yeah.
But, and Bjorn had a terrible reputation, but I had a decent relationship with him. I never, butted heads too bad. So every 2 days I said, Bjorn, let me go, I'm not coming back. And then so everyone says, well, Bellator didn't want to re-sign me. Well, that's not true at all. Every day it's, Bjorn, let me go. Bjorn, let me go. Because, I love challenges. What I love more than anything in the world is to challenge myself. If you look at my wrestling career, that's what it's all about. Taking the next best thing every single time. And so, so finally and all this time, Dana and the UFC is saying, we want Ben Askren, I'm ranked number 7 in the world or what, somewhere around there, 12-0. And so I remember I was going to the Asian food store because I was going to make some tonka soup. And Bjorn calls me and said, you're released. Full, you're released. You can go. And I said, I appreciate that. So Friday morning, it was Thursday night, Friday morning, it's in November sometime, maybe mid-November. Morning, they fax over the release. My management faxes it to UFC headquarters. And all of a sudden that afternoon, there's a little scrum where everyone's asking Dana questions. And then Dana says, we're not interested in Ben Askren. And I said, wait, what just happened there? Right? Because for the last 3 months, they were saying, we're interested. Now I finally produced this full release from Bellator that I got, and now they're not interested. And so I said, wow, I just got caught in the middle of this. And
so was there a reason given?
Well, so then Monday, so then I say, F that. So I bought a plane ticket to Vegas for Monday. So that was Friday that happens. I said, fuck that. I'm going to Vegas. I'm not taking this shit, Right. So Monday I buy my plane ticket to Vegas. I fly out to Vegas to UFC headquarters. I met with Lorenzo. Dana was on the little speakerphone dealie. And they offered me a Zuffa contract, but it would be confidential. And I would have to fight one fight for the World Series of Fighting, which is that's bizarre.
What?
Yeah. And they
One fight for the World Series of Fighting. What was your relationship with the World Series of Fighting? The World Series of Fighting was like a feeder organization at that time.
Something, yeah. I mean,
in a way.
Yeah.
Because Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje, both those guys came from champs over there to the UFC.
I think the relationship is very hazy between the old World Series of Fighting and the UFC because there was also people that went the other way, right? Andrei Arlovsky gets dropped from the UFC, goes to World Series. Anthony Johnson, boom, all these people.
Yeah.
So they say one fight. World Series of Fighting, we will pay, Zuffa will pay you. But you do one fight.
Okay.
I say, well, that's effed up, but okay. I said, I don't think anyone's going to go for it, but I'll do it. So I leave, and about 6 hours later, I got a phone call and says that deal is no longer available. We are not going to make you an offer.